One of the things that I've been hungry for in recent weeks, recent days especially, with all this been going on in the news cycle, is seeing a Democrat, a liberal on Fox News, being able to throw down some truth. And one of the people we used to go to for that was the love, Jessiah, who's away on maternity leave. And that's left a void. So there's been not much in terms of rationality on Fox News, of course. But Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss appeared and did a really nice job, made John Roberts, the Fox News host, regret bringing him on the Fox News airwaves. So I'll play this for you, a lot to respond to, and we'll start with this.
Congressman Jake Auchincloss. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the program, I believe, for the first time. The drumbeat among Democrats is rising for the president to get out of the race. He addressed those concerns in a letter that was sent to congressional Democrats today. Talks about all of the concerns that they have. And then he says this, quote, "I can respond to all of this by saying clearly and unequivocally, I wouldn't be running again if I did not absolutely believe I was the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2024. The Biden campaign strategy was to talk about Donald Trump and make this election all about Donald Trump. But now this election has become all about Joe Biden. Is that an election he can win?"
14 million Democratic primary voters think he can win it, and the Democratic Party should walk humbly before it contravenes the will of our voters. Unlike the Republican Party, we respect free and fair elections, and what unifies us as a party is knowing that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. And my challenge to my Republican colleagues is, why aren't you having this same public and painful conversation about your nominee? Because on that debate stage, Donald Trump lied every 90 seconds. He yet again refused to say he would accept election results when the last time around police officers died in the line of duty because he tried to incite an insurrection. He's trying to politicize Social Security. He's trying to hand Ukraine back over to Russia. How much more do House Republicans need to hear before they're willing to do the right thing?
So I have more to play from that. It gets better, but I want to bring in friend and colleague in the space, Jessiah from the Pondering Politics channel, to respond. They're presenting himself. So Jessiah, you and I have not talked since the debate. And one of the things I always feel the need to say before diving into such an analysis is you don't have to ignore very justified conversations within the movement, within the pro-democracy side of this discussion, and people who disagree about how we move forward. What's the best way in defeating Donald Trump? You also don't have to ignore the bad debate performance and the concerns that came of that, to also acknowledge how MAGA has pounced on this moment to dishonestly exploit it for their ends. And so I love, of course, as Democratic congressman, it's not like Auchincloss is going to just jump right into on Fox News that thoughtful debate about how we proceed, but instead of flipping it around and going, all right, you've gotten a lot of airtime, some justified, some unjustified, having this discussion about the doubts around Biden's candidacy. I want to pose this to you. Isn't it just as, if not more justified, Fox News viewers, to be calling on Trump to drop out of the race? What's your response to Jake Auchincloss there?
So it was a masterclass performance by Congressman Auchincloss. I mean, we've talked about when we've collaborated in the past, we've talked about it privately as friends, some of the best Democratic surrogates in the space, Gavin Newsom, obviously, Pete Buttigieg. I think Buttigieg actually might be king in the space, but, Auchincloss is giving them both a run for their money there. John Roberts clearly wants to sandbag any Democrat that is in front of him. He wants to make it exclusively about President Biden's debate performance. To your point, they want to ignore the fact that Donald Trump lied 30 times. I think it was one lie per 60 to 90 seconds. He's a prodigious liar. He lied infinitely more than President Biden. He refused to answer questions directly. President Biden attempted to do so. And yeah, he constantly dissembled, and it was a terrible debate performance. Even if you look at the polls, people thought that Trump did better than Biden, but it's not like Trump was winning over voters as a consequence of this. The polls in the aftermath showed that Trump is still unfit for office, according to the vast majority of Americans. So there's plenty of things for Auchincloss to talk about. And what I love is the fact that he uses the opportunity to expose Fox viewers to facts that they may not otherwise hear. I think that this is a brilliant decision. It's a masterclass performance.
Great point. of course, Fox is going to have a little bit more interest in talking to Democrats than usual when the subject matter, at least initially, is going to be the doubts around Biden, when it's going to be something they perceive to be positive for Trump. But if you're a Democrat getting asked to go on, I've seen one Democrat after another being more honest than you could possibly imagine a Republican politician with flip roles being about the concerns and about the debate performance, but still, at least in this case, being good at saying, but while I have your audience, let me say, and then a bunch of things like you said that they never hear about Donald Trump and the threat that he poses. And there's more to be said, but let's first play more from that back and forth.
I mean, the Republicans are trying to defund the FBI. They're nominating a convicted felon. They're trying to surge machine guns onto our streets and in our schools. This is not a party that respects the rule of law.
Yeah, with respect, Congressman, I mean, I keep asking about Joe Biden. You keep talking about Donald Trump. But there are
because the questions about Joe Biden are questions about who can beat Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is the threat to democracy right now.
Do you really think Joe Biden can beat Donald Trump? Or would Kamala Harris be a better person to do that? Would Gavin Newsom be a better person to do that? Do you think after that debate performance, this is the guy you want running for president?
Every one of those names that you just mentioned could beat Donald Trump. And the reason why is because Donald Trump is unpopular. He's actually probably the most unpopular national politician of modern American history, because voters don't want to see their tax returns have a little partisan affiliation box they have to check next year. They don't want their Social Security checks to come with strings attached. They don't want forced deportations of their friends and their neighbors who are trying to become American citizens. They don't want to see him supplicating himself in front of Vladimir Putin like he did in 2018 in
Right,
Helsinki.
but there are a lot of Democratic and independent voters who want to see somebody with the mental competence to run, and increasingly they don't think that's Joe Biden.
The opinion of Pennsylvanians, of Michigans, of Wisconsinites is absolutely vital. Don't disagree with you there. And that is going to be the challenge ahead of the top of the Democratic ticket, is to make a strong and sharp contrast against what Donald Trump is offering. This is not just about the past and about the record of accomplishments. This is about the future as well. And Democrats have a much more compelling vision of the future than MAGA Republicans do. We want an economy that works for everyone. We don't want this next tax bill to reward the wealthy and the well-connected. We want to defend and enhance U.S. global leadership. And that's going to resonate with voters. But yes, we need strong communicators for it.
All right. Well, we'll see how it goes. Voting begins in just a couple of months. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Nice to be with you.
All right.
So, again, great job there to Auchincloss. Jessiah, I know in collaboration sometimes I've been with people and I hear them say things, and because we're collaborating, it's sort of being projected automatically onto me, and it can be uncomfortable. So I just want to say, this is me saying it from my perspective. You can give whatever take you have. But I've been upset with people going in both directions, just tearing each other apart within the pro-democracy movement, because you have your side forming saying, any suggestions that we should reconsider the candidate, you're evil. And you also have people saying, any suggestions that we shouldn't drop Biden, you're evil. And they go both directions. I think doing that is counterproductive, and we can have a level-headed discussion about what comes ahead. It seems like that's coming to an end because Biden has continued to say that he's not dropping off the ticket. So then, if that is true, if Biden's saying there's no chance I'm going to drop, even if perfectly rational points have been made in people expressing those concerns or ideas about what could happen, then when as a movement do we say, all right, well, that's behind us now, and let's get back to focusing? Is it around now? How much time do we have until we just say, he said no, and so that means he's going to be the candidate, given that he won the primaries, and as the candidate with his flaws, far superior to Donald Trump, and we need to make that case aggressively.
Yeah, so I think you raised some really interesting points. I'll say in the aftermath of the debate, I did one video about the debate, and I began saying, listen, before we get into the substance of the video, the postmortem, I did want to acknowledge President Biden's terrible performance. I played a clip, in which there's a line, I think, from Trump where he's mocking President Biden. I can't even remember the exact quote. I felt that it was important to be honest and upfront and say that Biden performed terribly. And then 90% of the remainder of the video was dedicated to talking about what I thought was the more substantive issue, which is the fact that Trump was yet again being graded on a curve. And I have had pushback from my audience, people on Twitter, people on YouTube as well, who are like, I can't believe that you said this thing about the president, but it's my honest opinion, and I feel that it does us no favors by pretending that it was a good performance. It wasn't. But I also agree that we have to have room for diversity of opinion in this sense. So I don't know what the answer is with respect to who should be the Democratic nominee. And as far as I'm concerned, President Biden has settled the question for us, regardless of what I think, and even regardless of what you think. We're not in a position to influence the president. He has made his decision, and until his decision changes, I think we have an obligation, not only to the Democratic Party, but more importantly, to the American people, including conservatives, by the way, who will benefit from a Biden presidency, a Democratic-led country compared to a country led by MAGA Republicans, to, support the ticket. Because as you say, President Biden on his worst day is a better president, a better executive, a better legislator than Donald Trump at his very best. And he demonstrated, if you compare the two men's records, people talk about, Luke, how important a debate is. I mean, I don't want to downplay the terrible spectacle that it was, but we're not electing a debater-in-chief. We are electing a commander-in-chief, a chief executive, a head of state, a head of government. And Biden's record is objectively far better. So I'm with you. Like, I've had conversations on people's streams. We're having a conversation about it now, nearly 2 weeks later. I don't mind talking about it, and I don't denigrate people who disagree with me. But at the end of the day, I do think it's important to mobilize and make use of the time that we have left. So I can say for my channel, specifically, I have moved on to attacking what I think is the greater problem, which is the threat posed by MAGA Republicans, and I wish people would follow suit.
Yeah, and the reason I have such compassion for people espousing both views and why I haven't really found it necessary to jump into a debate myself, partly because it's a confusing issue, as you indicated, but also because I think for us who are a little bit on the sidelines in those decisions being made, we need to also serve, while having honest, transparent conversations about everything, also serve to refocus and rebalance the broader media narratives that are going on. Because right now, if you just tuned in as sort of an alien to American politics, you would think there's one story, and that surely the candidate on the other side must just be delightful. And in reality, the most consequential characteristics of the guy on the other side, whether it be basic character or, as you said, just governing, how did he get things done that help the American people, or the most foundational thing being how he respects or doesn't respect our democracy and his record on that, and then his vision, Project 2025. Now, I will say in closing that it's been good to see, not because of the mainstream media, I think they've dropped the ball on this, but because many people in this space have forced a conversation about, for example, Project 2025. I saw just recently Google searches are finally spiking on that, even above Taylor Swift and the NFL football and stuff like that. And so know that if you feel sort of subject to the narratives, slapped around by them and out of control, know that we do have power in deciding our fate by espousing the truth and then just trying to explain to people the stakes. We don't have perfect options, but we have a very clear choice here that I think is the simple choice based on what's right and wrong and the records of the two candidates.
Yeah, I just want to say that you and I are friends, so I know you well enough to say this, that part of the reason why you have yet to opine, and same here, is a level of epistemic humility. I don't know what the correct answer is. I have a political science degree, but I'm not a career Democratic strategist and operative. I'm not, a Rachel Bitecofer or anything like that. So to me, I have seen good arguments on either side of how to proceed with respect to the Democratic ticket, but I have not found one that's hyper persuasive. But again, at the end of the day, President Biden is ultimately the decision maker here, whether you like it or not, and he has made the decision. And so going back all the way to Representative Auchincloss here, I love the fact that he took the opportunity to, starkly contrast the two men in question, and he is refusing to allow Fox to dictate the terms of the conversation. And as you and I have talked about, this is important, Luke, because it's the asymmetry of expectation. And by the way, have you noticed that our peers in the space and also, people on legacy media, on MSNBC, that they're actually starting to talk about that asymmetry more? they're finally picking up the mantle, Luke, that we laid down. They are acknowledging this asymmetry, and they're saying, you know what? This probably shouldn't be the single overriding focus of the mainstream media. And to your point about Project 2025, we're starting to see a shift there. So I'm hoping this is the tide starting to turn for the better.
We will leave it there. Jessiah, where can people find you?
They can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. I appreciate it, Luke.
Always.